Ineos is one of the largest chemicals companies that you've never heard of. Despite little being known about the company, they produce the raw materials for goods from bottle tops and toothpaste to computers, Lego and cars from 78 manufacturing sites around the world. The company turns over $61 billion and employs 26,000 people in 26 countries. Known to his friends as Lucky Jim, he still runs the company at the age of 71. The story of Ineos starts when Ratcliffe was born in 1952 and lived in a small village near Manchester. After moving to Yorkshire, he attended Beverley Grammar School. Despite claiming he only played football at school, Ratcliffe showed an early interest in manufacturing, running the school's industrial society, organizing tours of paint factories, chemical plants and other manufacturing facilities. After deciding to study chemical engineering, he chose the University of Birmingham over Imperial College, as he had never been to London. He graduated with a 2:1 and was offered a permanent job at BP after working there during his summer holidays. However, he was fired after only 3 days due to a skin condition. He then moved to rival Esso, who funded his MBA at the London Business School, a path less followed than it is today. A short stint at a clothing and chemicals manufacturer followed until a call from a headhunter led him to venture capital firm Advent International. They tripled his salary and offered him a fancy company car that was nicer than the chairman of his previous company. Private equity taught Jim to look for and create value and, more importantly, do deals. Ratcliffe's first deal was poor, but as he learnt the process, the success came. However, Ratcliffe was more interested in buying and then running the business rather than selling it and buying another. He felt a good opportunity would arise from working in the industry, and it did in 1992. Alongside former business partner John Hollywood, they bought BP's specialist chemicals operation in Fawley, Hampshire, with backing from private equity for $37 million and debt that was raised through junk bonds. The deal initially fell through in 1992 after interest rates rose to 26%, but the interest rate fell again a few days later and the deal was agreed. Ratcliffe put all he had on the line, mortgaging his house and putting all his money into the deal. According to a colleague, Jim was eager for success and very, very determined. They ran the company for 6 years, did one merger for $11 million and listed on the stock market in 1994 for $150 million, quadrupling their investment in only 15 months. Inspec was mainly a high-margin chemicals business but also owned a cyclical commodity plant whose prices rose and fell with the general cycle of the economy. Ratcliffe quit Inspec in 1998 and raised the $84 million to buy an asset that Inspec investors did not value. This was the start of Ineos, the company's name that derived from the Latin in eo, meaning for a new beginning, and neos, the Greek for something new and innovative. This vehicle ushered in a new type of private equity-backed vehicle that raised significant capital via debt to fund acquisitions. Alongside business partners Andy Curry and John Rees, who own a combined 40% of the company, they built an empire by acquiring assets cast off by companies such as BP, ICI and other corporate giants. Their strategy was simple: buy unfashionable businesses and reduce their costs to make them profitable over the long run. The trio expect earnings from acquisitions to double within 5 years. He does not look for synergies between purchases, seeing diversification as a strength. This has led to purchases from companies including consumer goods company Unilever, agrochemical producer Monsanto and oil giant ConocoPhillips as they restructured. The trio were rigorous in their approach to acquisitions, leaving no stone unturned as they looked for unloved assets to purchase and turn around. As the company grew, so did the size of the acquisitions. Between 1998 and 2008, Ineos acquired 22 companies, including the purchase of Ineos, the refining subsidiary of BP in 2005 that had revenues of $25 billion and was the 5th largest petrochemical and polymer company in the world. The $9 billion deal propelled Ineos into the big leagues of global chemical companies, tripling the size of the business overnight. Ratcliffe agreed to the deal whilst mountain biking in a rainy valley in Ben Nevis in Scotland and did not visit the site until after the purchase. Investment banks Barclays, Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley agreed to provide the funding. Ratcliffe gambled the farm, but he did not think it was high risk. The deal gave Ineos 15 production sites globally that produced terephthalic acid and acetyl products that are used to produce goods from textiles and plastics to pharmaceuticals. The only issue was until this point, Ratcliffe had not run a refinery, but he soon got the hang of it after reading the website How Stuff Works. BP had expertise in oil and gas and not in petrochemicals, and were more focused on the high-margin, low-cost business of oil, so decided to sell. Ratcliffe and his team were more focused and delivered significant value to the business. During the financial crisis in 2008, Ineos was highly leveraged, causing the banks to move in after the company broke the covenant in their lending agreement. The collapse in the price of oil from $140 per barrel in the summer of 2008 to only $39 per barrel only 6 months later. Ineos had large amount of oil, around 10 million barrels worth, sitting in 2 refineries at the time, and the company lost around 1 billion due to this. Overnight, the banks took €804 million in the next 12 months. Ineos managed to reclaim this money, convincing the banks it should stay in charge, and agreed to a restructuring plan. As Ineos struggled to survive, major competitor LyondellBasell filed for bankruptcy. Ineos survived the financial crisis, reducing costs by over 300 million and improving efficiencies in their operating model, allowing the company to rebound strongly. In 2011, the acquisitions continued. Ineos entered into a joint venture with state-owned PetroChina, combining Ineos's French and Scottish refineries with PetroChina's upstream raw materials. The deal reduced debt by $1 billion, reducing company leverage to 3.5 times EBITDA. The deals have continued, with Ineos agreeing to buy the 235-mile Forties pipeline system in the North Sea from BP in 2017 for $250 million. The pipeline links 85 North Sea oil and gas assets to the UK mainland and can transport 575,000 barrels of oil a day. Over £1 billion has since been spent upgrading it and carries almost 1/3 of the UK's offshore oil and gas production. In 2019, the company invested £2.6 billion in petrochemical production in Belgium. The company also has a number of Dragon ships that can transport natural gas from the US to the UK as part of a $1 billion project. In 2017, Ineos recorded underlying profits of EUR 4.3 billion on EUR 15.2 billion of revenue, making it one of the largest chemical companies in the world. A major milestone for Ineos was the deal to purchase BP's petrochemicals business for $5 billion in 2020, and in tradition, Ineos style is funded mainly by debt to the tune of $3.6 billion. The deal gives Ineos a foothold in Asia and the polyester industry, which is crucial for goods such as drink bottles and oven-proof trays. In more recent times, Ineos has continued to acquire companies and has built up a commercial fleet of 20 ocean-going tankers to transport shale gas around the world. As COVID struck, the company moved to build a hand sanitizer factory in 7 days, initially providing 4 million bottles for free worldwide. The purchase of a 50% stake in Shanghai Seco Petrochemical from Chinese giant Sinopec. The site in Shanghai provides a range of plastics and produces revenues of $5 billion. The complex joined Ineos's assets opened in China, which were purchased from Total in 2019. A joint venture with Sinopec was also signed, with 2 further plants being built in the country. Ineos have also secured EUR 3.5 billion in financing to make the petrochemical facility purchased in 2019 the most energy efficient in the world. 21 banks were involved in the deal, and the new cracker will convert low-cost ethane, a byproduct of natural gas production, into ethylene, one of the most important feedstocks used in making everything from food wrappers to insulation. The company continues to make strides in the target of net zero by 2050, successfully capturing carbon dioxide and injecting it into a disused gas well as developing hydrogen pipelines and power for cars. Ineos already produces enough low-carbon hydrogen to replace around 2 billion litres of diesel. As of 2023, Ineos owns 36 individual companies, all of which have their own CEO, with little impact from Ratcliffe and his lieutenants. A board meeting is held each month to discuss progress and provides the opportunity for the wider business to grow quickly and generate new ideas. The success of Ineos has not come without controversy. After the Labour government refused a temporary referral of VAT payments that amounted to 350 million, Ratcliffe moved the HQ to Rolla, Switzerland from the UK in 2010. The move saved Ineos millions of pounds, leading to some calling him a tax dodger. These continued in the run-up to the 2019 general election, when he tried to move his money to the tax haven if the Labour government increased taxes on the rich in the UK. Ratcliffe returned the company to London in 2016 to push for fracking in the UK. He's been critical of UK government rules, highlighting the untapped potential of the north of England. Green protesters were against the idea, and the small projects that did go ahead caused minor earthquakes in the surrounding areas. Ratcliffe later abandoned his fracking plans in the UK after purchasing 2,300 oil and gas wells from Chesapeake Energy for $1.2 billion in the renowned Eagle Ford shale rocks in Texas. He has also threatened to close down Ineos's Grangemouth oil refinery that employs around 2,000 people should the Labour Party ban new oil and gas projects in the North Sea if they win the next election. He later announced the closure of Scotland's last remaining oil refinery in 2023 after losses of over $1 billion in the last 12 years. The refinery will be converted into a fuel import terminal with 700 jobs losses. The closure causes issues in Scotland, as the refinery currently supplies almost all the diesel and petrol used by Scottish motorists and thousands of homes who don't use gas. Ineos is keen to cut emissions, but Ratcliffe recently stated that the company has an appetite to acquire in regard to oil and gas fields. Ratcliffe is also critical of UK policy, accusing the Competition and Markets Authority of being hostile to business after they blocked a deal to purchase Sika's concrete additives business and taxing the North Sea oil and gas industry to death when rates rose from 40 to 75% to shield consumers from the cost of living crisis. Beyond the boardroom, Ratcliffe is a self-proclaimed sports fanatic, running marathons and completing Ironman triathlon despite being 71. He also bankrolls sports teams including the Ineos Tour de France cycling team, Lausanne FC, Nice FC, and sponsors the Mercedes F1 team. He also bankrolled Eliud Kipchoge's record-breaking marathon that took less than 2 hours. He has spent around $400 million on sporting enterprises and has recently agreed a $1.25 billion deal to purchase a 25% stake in Manchester United. His sporting purchases have been criticized as a cover-up for his polluting practices such as fracking and plastic production. Ineos have rejected this, suggesting the purchases are for the love of sport and draws unwanted attention to a company that was the biggest company you have never heard of. Ratcliffe is also building a 4A4 to fill the void left by the iconic Land Rover Defender codenamed the Grenadier that was released in 2022. Ratcliffe failed to convince JLR to bring back the original Defender, so invested over $600 million in the car that is manufactured in France. He dreamt up the plans in a pub in Belgravia that he owns and named the project after it. BMW has played an important role in the project, providing the diesel engines that will power the car. The company expects to sell 30,000 cars a year and start at around P64,000. The company is currently developing an electric version of the Grenadier, which is expected to be released in 2026. Considering Ratcliffe only founded in EOS 25 years ago, he has successfully built Britain's largest private company and a global player in the chemicals industry, with annual sales of 60 billion that is valued at over 30 billion. He may no longer be Britain's richest man, with an estimated net worth of 30 billion and homes in Monaco and Hampshire. Life is pretty good for a boy born on a council estate.